Here now is Byron York from the Washington Examiner. He's also a Fox contributor. Byron, are you there?
I am.
Okay,
David.
we so far have only your audio, Byron, but supposedly you can hear us. Is that correct?
I can indeed.
Okay, good. What do you think we are going to be in store of from what Elon is going to be doing? Is this going to be just a Q&A by typing, or might there be some live feed, or what?
Well, you have to think that there was significant internal discussion in October 2020 when Twitter suppressed the Hunter Biden laptop story. There's a lot of record of that. There are some people who were at Twitter at the time who are still there, although I would suspect most have left. And there is a story to be told. And remember, you have to go back to what the story was. This was October 14th, 2020. 20 days before the election, the New York Post publishes a story, and it's all about Joe Biden. It says that emails that were found on Hunter Biden's laptop showed that a Ukrainian businessman who was an associate of Hunter Biden had sent an email to Hunter thanking him for giving him the opportunity to meet the vice president, that is Hunter Biden's father. So it was always about the connection to Joe Biden.
And I'm going to revive an old phrase from a couple of years ago, the deep state. I mean, we have to remember, this is before Joe Biden was elected. Obviously, it was before his inauguration, but it was even before his election. So this was a collusion of sorts between the media, the deep state folks, that includes John Brennan, who was former director of the CIA, and Mr. Clapper, who was former DIA, who were vouching that this information that the New York Post had was Russian disinformation. That was a total lie. It wasn't true. But the deep state, what we used to call the deep state, was pushing this scenario, and the media in total bought into this.
Yeah, that was, as in retrospect, that was kind of a disinformation exercise itself, because you have to remember, this is October 2020. It's coming after years of Trump-Russia spectacular, sensational reporting and then debunking that takes place in the Mueller report, which said that Mueller could not establish that collusion even took place, much less who did it. So when October 2020 comes and this story is posted, it's almost natural. It's like a knee-jerk reaction for a number of people, such as Brennan, Clapper, and others, to say, oh, this is Russian disinformation. If you look at the letter that they all signed, they said it had all the hallmarks of Russian disinformation, which to them gave them wiggle room to say later, oh, I didn't say it was Russian disinformation. But in fact, they strongly suggested it, and it gave cover. It gave a rationale for an organization like Twitter to censor and suppress the story.
And of course, it also gave a rationale, as I said before, to the entire media, the legacy media, not to publish this story at all, or at least to scoff at it. Remember when 60 Minutes had the interview with Donald Trump when he was still president, he brought up the story, and Leslie Stahl, who was working for 60 Minutes, said, oh, Mr. President, that hasn't been verified. She just totally dismissed it, which is what the rest of the media did in tandem. So it really was a collusion between the folks running Twitter at the time, the media, and that deep state group that was determined to get Joe Biden to win the election.
And these legacy media groups let that decision stand for more than a year, for months. As a matter of fact, we had this weird moment earlier this year in March of 2022 when both the New York Times and the Washington Post published stories verifying at least large parts of the Hunter Biden laptop. And just recently, we had kind of out of the blue, CBS News published its own story verifying large parts of the Hunter Biden laptop. And so now, some of this is being shaken loose, obviously, by Elon Musk's purchase of Twitter, but also by the Republican takeover of the House. Republicans have made clear that they are going to investigate the Hunter Biden story. And if you listen to James Comer, who's going to be the chairman of the House Investigations or Oversight Committee, he explained it last week. He said, look, this is a Joe Biden story. We're not going to investigate how Hunter Biden led a depraved life as a crackhead. That's not the story. The story is whether his father, the vice president, benefited from the influence peddling that Hunter was doing at the time.
And we also now, by the way, we should mention this week we had Janet Yellen, the Treasury Secretary, come out and reverse herself, where she said a couple of months ago they weren't going to investigate Twitter, whether or not there's some foreigners manipulating the company in some way, which would put it in the hands of CFIUS, which she's the chair of as Treasury Secretary. Now she says this week that they may be investigating. CFIUS may be investigating Twitter. When all this stuff is happening with Apple and their connections with the Communist Party of China, and whether or not they're going along with government's attempt to silence the protesters, instead of investigating Apple because they say they can't, it's hands off, they're thinking of investigating Twitter.
The political establishment's reaction to Elon Musk's purchase of Twitter has just been extraordinary. They want to shut it down. They think it's going to implode in the next half hour. They think it's going to be a danger to people. It's just extraordinary how viscerally they have reacted to this change of management at Twitter. My own feeling is, we'll have to see how it works. Musk certainly has a record of accomplishments in making electric cars and rocket ships. That's a very, very impressive, and in my view, and certainly worth giving him a chance to do something with Twitter. But when you get a reaction like this, it tells you the degree to which the political establishment thought of Twitter as its own internal organ. And now it's been taken over by an outsider, so it must be investigated.
And of course, just one. I mean, they have the legacy media, they have Facebook, and they want total control. They weren't satisfied with what they already have in terms of supporters. Then you have the question of TikTok. And granted, the administration said they're concerned about it, they're watching it, but they haven't really taken the steps that a lot of people say are necessary to stop it being used as a spy tool by the Chinese Communist government. And they have something called Media Links. Forbes came out with a very interesting piece about this site, Media Links, which is really spewing out a lot of stuff that's totally against Republicans, almost totally in favor of Democrats. It is actually distributed by something called the CCTV, which is the Chinese Central TV. And I mean, it's clear they actually state in their acronym the fact that they're a part of the Chinese Communist government, and it's part of TikTok. I mean, they are actively trying to interfere in our political system.
There's no doubt about that. Remember what Senator Tom Cotton said recently. He said, if you have TikTok on your phone, delete it from your phone and then get another phone. The idea of millions of Americans basically carrying around spyware is frightening enough. And then the use of it for propaganda purposes, which you were suggesting, in which users would see stories that appear to be legitimate news stories that are actually propaganda. Now, this is something clearly the Russians tried to do some of this in 2016. This is something that is a fact of life in our political life now. And the U.S. government needs to be very, very sensitive to it. And when it's being done in plain sight, they need to do more.
Here's some of the headlines, by the way. Democrats are getting it done. Rubio has absolutely nothing. Cruz doesn't care about us. And if anybody's interested, go to the Forbes website. The title of the piece is On TikTok, Chinese State Media Pushes Divisive Videos About U.S. Politicians. Fascinating read. Byron, so far, we haven't seen anything yet. We've been monitoring the site, Elon Musk's site. We're continuing to monitor it. He's passed his 5 p.m. deadline. It's now 5:10 Eastern time. So we will continue to monitor that. Stay with us. If we need to have you, we may come back to you later in the hour. Byron York, thank you very much.